When an unsolved crime from Gotham City's past rears its ugly head again, it will be up to the dynamic duo to solve it once and for all. What'll happen next? Well, it's hop into the pages of Batman and Robin issue number 14. The kickoff to the brand new Phillip Kennedy Johnson era, and find out what happens next together, shall we? So then, as we hop into the book, we actually take a trip all the way back to 1892, wherein we see a mysterious new character by the name of Nicodemus Crow is being laid to rest by his followers, and let's face it, with a name as kick-ass as Nicodemus Crow, you have to be some sort of evil cult leader, right? It's also well getting encased in plaster too. His followers are sure to drop the phrase memento mori, which is of course Latin for remember to die. Though in reality, I believe the sentiment behind memento mori is more along the lines of remember that you're going to die. Now back in present day, we see Batman and Robin hard at work trying to clean the mean streets of Gotham. Today they're dealing with a group of eco-terrorists who are related to the Green Knight, which is apparently a reference to what's going on in the pages of the Poison Ivy book right now. Man, I really gotta read that one. The terrorists have an SUV loaded up with high-yield explosives and several bait cars to try and slow Batman and Robin down. Not that it does, in fact, quite the opposite. We get a very fun little joke here wherein both Bruce and Damian talk about how bad guys never seem to do up their seatbelts. And in the end, it only ends up hurting them more. The bomb goes off, but doesn't actually hurt anyone. Meaning that once again, the day is saved. It's after that we're treated to what might very well actually be the first look at what the Batcave looks like in the brand new Pennyworth Manor. And to be brutally honest, I don't exactly like it. It looks a little way too modern. Too sterile, a little too Apple Store, but more than anything, it actually doesn't look all that different than the Batcave setup we saw in the Brownstone, which I guess makes a lot of sense because Batman probably moved all the stuff from there to here. But it's like, come on, if you get the opportunity to redesign the Batcave, why not go nuts with it? Where's the dinosaur? Where's the giant penny? Where's the bats? Well, nowhere, because I guess we're technically not even in a cave anymore, but moving on. It seems that tonight Bruce and Damian have a big gala ball to attend. It seems that as part of Bruce's brand new urban renewal effort, he's reopening one of Gotham's oldest medical institutions that fell out of favor back in, you guessed it, the 1800s after seemingly 12 people died in a boiler fire. Damian is snooty and doesn't want to go, seeing anything that him and his father do outside of their costumes as huge wastes of time, which doesn't gel at all with literally the last volume, which was all about Damian trying to join the rest of the world and actually have a life outside of being just a superhero. In fact, I'm sad to say this whole issue is actually filled with a ton of different little annoying little character inconsistencies just like this one. Bruce ends up pushing Damian to go anyway, and while they're putting their suits on, we see that within Pennyworth Manor, Bruce actually has a special chessboard. One wherein we learn he and Ra's al Ghul have actually been playing the same game for years now. Every time they interacted with one another, they would be sure to state their next move. The game has been unfinished for a long time now because as far as anyone else knows, Ra's is dead. Even though he's not, his ghost was literally haunting Damian's girlfriend Flatline, but then that story just kind of ended up not going anywhere, but the implication is that we might actually end up circling back to it sooner rather than later. Now, believe it or not, the reopening of this new medical center has actually become something of a hot button issue internationally. You see, Bruce was sure to pick the best doctor possible to be the new head of day-to-day operations. That doctor's name was Dr. Malik Bashir, and he was actually a former student of Bruce's own father, Thomas. But get this, for the last couple years he's been working in Kahndaq. And because of that, a whole bunch of people see the doctor as an apologist for Kahndaq's supervillain dictator, Black Adam, and much like the movie Black Adam, just being involved with the guy and his nation has been following him around like one giant black cloud. Well, Bruce is certainly happy to reconnect with someone who knew his father as intimately as he did. Poor Damian ends up getting himself stuck at the literal kids' table. Which, yeah, I get it, it's a funny visual gag and everything, but once again, it doesn't quite gel with the arc before this, wherein Damian was becoming a young adult and earning so much more of his father's trust. Here it seems like they've aged him down not only in terms of years, but also in terms of personality too. Damian takes a major attitude with this Dr. Bashir guy when he talks about his own history with the Wayne family, only for Damian to blurt out, yeah, that must be nice and everything, I don't actually know much about the Wayne family, and it's true, he doesn't. Thomas and Martha have been dead longer than this kid has been alive, and it's not like Bruce hangs out with any other members of his extended family. Now, it wouldn't be a fundraiser in Gotham City if the shit didn't end up totally hitting the fan. It seems seems that a bunch of those guys out in the crowd who are harassing Dr. Bashir while also being sure to mention Memento Mori have barged their way into the building and started shooting. Now this obviously puts Batman in a rather awkward position because he told his son that this would be a no-costume affair, meaning that Bruce has to go and deal with this problem with none of his Batman accoutrement while also making Damian stay put so that no one gets too suspicious. No costume, though, does offer the opportunity for Bruce to get really creative. As he mentions in his internal monologue, the Gotham power grid is built on old Wayne tech, as is all of the backup generators, meaning that whenever Batman wants, he can cut power to the entire city, creating a full-on blackout which allows him to move around in the shadows much more easily and take out the gun-toting foes. However, once Batman deals with the gunman, things start to get really strange. He smells smoke coming from deep within the building, which should be impossible. A little digging around and Bruce ends up finding a secret sub-basement, something that's probably been sealed off since, you guessed it, the 1800s. And because Bruce truly is a detective at heart, he decides to follow the trail into the old boiler room, which is still somehow, someway burning all of these hundreds of years later. Oh, but that's not all the Dark Knight ends up finding either, as Bruce ends up coming face to face with the ghost of Nicodemus Crow, who, surprisingly, Crow recognizes Bruce? Or at the very least, someone who looks a lot like Bruce. In fact, earlier on in the issue, a little girl notes that Damian looks a lot like his own father. Bruce is absolutely terrified, meaning that it looks like it's up to Damian to actually deal with this problem as the comic comes to a close. And so that was Batman and Robin issue number 14, everybody, and to be brutally honest, I personally felt that this one kinda got off to a rough start. The book tries its hardest to pick up the spare left behind from the Joshua Williamson era on the book, while also trying to connect itself to several other big events happening in the other Gotham-centric books. That's a good idea in theory, but it also kind of feels like this first new issue just spins a lot of plates in hopes that we'll get to come back to them later. By far, though, I think the most jarring change from issue 13 to issue 14 is the radical shift in tone and focus. Love it or hate it, but Batman and Robin under Joshua Williamson was very much about Robin, which makes sense because Joshua Williamson had basically been shepherding all the major Damian stories for years at that point. And his big new narrative conceit was, hey, what if the Batman and Robin book was basically just a shonen anime? And honestly, I thought it worked pretty damn well. Here, though, the focus ends up changing completely back to Bruce Wayne as Batman, with Damian being more of a foil that Batman has to deal with on top of everything else, which would be fine if Damian kept some of his characterization from the previous run, but it really feels like none of that other stuff happened. He's back to being snotty and snooty and being a pain in the ass more or less just for the sake of being a pain in the ass. Maybe that'll change, I don't know. Beyond that, I can certainly respect this book for going in a more mystical, magical, paranormal direction. Batman is capable of doing so many things in terms of genre. So sure, you know, let's let him fight a ghost. Overall, though, I think I'd really only feel comfortable giving this one a 7 out of 10. An imperfect start, but I'll definitely come back for the next one to see how it all shakes out.
Hey there everyone, it's your old pal Cape Joel again, thanking you so much for watching to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, why not check out my Amazon link down in the description. Yes, that's right, the Cape Joel channel officially has its own Amazon storefront now. You can pick up a comic or anything else for that matter, and if you did, you'd really be helping me in the channel. So with that out of the way everyone, I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.